I have a story to tell you. I received this mail a while back, and I want to share it with you. One day, a teacher asked her students to list the names of other students in the room on a piece of paper, leaving a space between each name. Then she told them to think of the nicest things that you could say about each of your classmates, and to write it down. It took the remainder of the classroom period to finish their assignment, and as the students left the room, they handed each of the papers to the teacher. That Saturday, the teacher wrote down the name of each student on a separate piece of paper and listed what everyone had said about that particular individual. The nicest things. On Monday, she gave each of the students his or her list. Before long, the entire class was smiling. "Really?" she whispered. "I never knew I meant anything to anybody. And I didn't know other people liked me so much," were some of the comments. Now, no one ever mentioned those papers in class again. She never knew if the kids discussed them after class or with their parents. But it didn't matter. The exercise had accomplished its purpose. The students were happy with themselves and one another. And that group of students moved on. Several years later, one of her students who had joined the military was killed in a military operation overseas. And his teacher attended the funeral of that student. The church was packed with people and friends and classmates. One by one, those who loved him took a last walk by the coffin. And the teacher was the last one to approach the coffin to say her goodbye. As she stood there, one of the soldiers who had acted as a pallbearer came up to her and said, "Were you his teacher?" And she said, yes, I was. And the soldier said, "He talked a lot about you." Now, after the funeral, the soldier's former classmates went together for a luncheon. His mother and father were waiting to speak to the teacher. "I want to show you something," said the father, taking a wallet out of his pocket. "They found this on my son when he was killed. We thought you may recognize it." Opening the billfold, he carefully removed a worn piece of notebook paper that had been obviously taped, folded, and folded again many times. The teacher knew without looking that the papers were the ones on which she had listed all the good things of all of the classmates and what they said about him. "Thank you so much for doing that," the soldier's mother said. "As you can see, he treasured it. He treasured it." all of his former classmates started to gather around, and Charlie, one of the classmates, smiled rather sheepishly and said, "I still have my list. It's in the top drawer of my dresser." Chuck's wife said, "You know, Chuck asked me to put his list in our wedding album." "I have mine too," said Marilyn. "It's in my diary." And then Vicki, another classmate, reached into her pocketbook, took out her wallet, and showed her the worn and frazzled list, showed it to the group, and said, "I carry this with me all the time." And then Vicki added, without batting an eyelash, "I think we all saved our lists." That's when the teacher finally sat down and cried. She cried for her students and for all of his friends who would never see him again. That teacher is my hero. I taught for almost 40 years. Oh, I complimented my students when it was appropriate, but I never thought to do that. Never thought to do that. If I could only go back, I would. But in our workshop, after this, after our talk, we have an opportunity to do just that. I hope to see you there, and I hope we do some writing. And I thank you.